We're going to be doing that every time we come off another profitable card. So once again, you hear the coffee getting sipped up. We now hit 9 of our last 10 official plays. We hit 2 of our 3 plays on this past fight card. We're going to be breaking down all of UFC Austin. We'll briefly touch upon the Kevin Holland beef. I know things have been brewing. I can't get the guy out of my IG comments. We'll see if the match of the Teller and Holland will be taking place in the near future, but I don't want that to overshadow what we've been doing over here from a betting perspective. On a more serious note, we've been killing it. Again, we've hit 9 of our last 10 official plays. We profit over 3.5 units this past card. Again, we'll recap all that. Now, this upcoming fight card, UFC Vegas 57, this is a sleeper card. I'm very, very excited for this card. I'm talking about 5-star up-and-coming talent all throughout the card, legitimate up-and-comers that are going to work their way towards the top of their divisions all throughout the card. So I'm pumped up for this card, and I think there's some spectacular spots to make some money. All right, so we got an excellent episode lined up for you guys. Strap your seatbelts up, get a beer, get a coffee, get a water, whatever you want. Just get comfortable and relax, and we're going to be talking all things UFC Vegas 57. Let's go.
The Teller.
It's another day. Left jab, right jab. This is MMA. Mixed martial arts, quick body parts, undefeated when I pick 'em. Who the champ, who the victim? Looking in my crystal ball, I predict the winner. Never stop fighting. If you lose, keep your chin up. Know how the game go. I'm a smart fella. Welcome to the show. This the MMA fortune teller.
The MMA fortune teller.
The Teller.
What is up, you guys? UFC Vegas 57. We got Mateusz and Gamrot taking on Arman Tsarukyan, 2 top 15 lightweight fighters. In my opinion, 2 of the more underrated fighters in the UFC. You will see the numbers 11 and 12 next to their names if you look at the rankings in the lightweight division. Personally, I feel these men can take out many men above them, and time will tell with that. We'll see that to come in the future, especially Arman Tsarukyan. He's a stud, but Mateusz Gamrot is a very talented fighter as well. Other than that, on this fight card, we got Shavkat Rakhmonov, a guy that I'm extremely high on as well, taking on a battle-tested veteran in Neil Magny, another fighter that I'm obviously extremely high on. Many of you guys are as well. Umar Nurmagomedov taking on a tough test in Nate Maness. If you guys don't know, Nate Maness is actually a well-rounded fighter, and you guys are going to find that out quickly. But obviously, Umar is a very, very special fighter. Chris Curtis versus Rodolfo Vieira is a fun fight, and Nchukwi versus Ulberg. Overall, I've been very pleased with this card. JP Bays, he looks for redemption on the big stage after what just happened with Delize, which we'll be talking about in a second. Roman Delize went out, got a big victory, just kind of just rubbing dirt in the face of Bays as he looks to get back in there himself. So Bays has a lot of pressure on him. We'll be talking about that whole situation. Cody Durden's no pushover either. I really like this card. I really, really like this card from an entertainment standpoint and from a betting standpoint. Now, before we get into the recap of UFC Austin, a couple things we'll brush upon. Tager Ulberg did pull out of this upcoming event. He was supposed to be fighting Tyson Nam, so you won't see a prediction on that fight here. In case you didn't know that and you were wondering why you're not hearing that, the fight has been scratched. Tager Ulberg had pulled out of the fight due to an injury. So now, briefly, we'll talk about the Kevin Holland situation. If you want to go to my Instagram, MMA Fortune Teller _, you can catch a video. You see it right here. You can catch a video of me going in depth of what's been going down, a little bit of my side of things. I'm not going to really talk about it too much here because we got business to attend to. We got fights and bets to be talking about here. I'm not going to go on in depth about the whole Kevin Holland situation. I know a lot of you guys have been wondering. I've been getting a lot of messages about it. I think I'll just do a more specific video for that sometime this week. But just know I was poking fun with the situation, and hopefully a lot of you guys can start to understand that. I like to be sarcastic. I know sometimes it comes off serious. I like to joke around. One thing I will tell you, man, if you think Kevin Holland's a good dude, I promise you he's not. I've been getting messages from a lot of you guys out there telling me your personal experiences. One of them was downright dirty. Just this past weekend, somebody out there with their family, their girl, their kids and whatnot, trying to get a picture and get an autograph of Kevin Holland, bumping into him at a restaurant this past weekend over there in Texas. And Kevin Holland flat out denied the family the picture and the autograph and said it doesn't represent his brand good. He doesn't do that. The wife asked again, and then Kevin Holland actually got kind of rude or whatnot. He told me his whole personal experience, and it was pretty disgusting. And I knew that he was that type of guy. I saw it. I saw a bunch of things happening throughout the week when I was kind of busting chops, joking. I saw some of the things he was saying and how he was acting. A lot of you guys don't realize how some of these guys are. You think that Kevin Holland's a happy-go-lucky, chill dude. He ain't like that. He's not like that. A lot of you guys told me your personal experiences. I'll go in depth about that, but he's not a cool dude. And listen, I'm no star, but if I bump into any of you guys, I'm getting shots with you guys. I'll buy you a drink. We're chilling. We're hanging out. We're taking pictures. And I'm sure Holland obviously gets that a lot more, but I'm telling you, when it comes to kids and the family and whatnot, and you ain't going to do that when someone's telling you they're a Giant fan, I got no respect for that. So for all you Holland fans out there, I don't know, man, you might want to think that twice. But we move on, and we're going to be jumping over to UFC Austin. The more important point was that we had another profitable event. Let's dive into the card. So we had 3 official plays. Initially, we did have 4 official plays. One of the fights fell through, and that was the Joe Lozon versus Donald Cerrone fight. A lot of you guys heard about that. I will say this much too, man. This is pretty cool. I do have an insider that's been giving me some inside news, and I'm getting it nice and early. I posted about the Cerrone-Lozon fight being scratched early Saturday morning, well before it was announced, hours before Ariel Helwani even announced it. Before anybody announced it. In fact, everybody was coming at me hard. Again, I was getting a lot of hatred this past weekend, but I like it. I know I have plenty of you supporters out there too, so I love you guys. But everybody was saying I was making this up, and the only way I could have known this if I actually worked for ESPN or DraftKings and I was messing people's lineups up. And I just said, hey, man, I'm just trying to let you guys know the fight ain't going to happen. And again, hours later, it was announced that the fight fell through. One of my inside sources, who's very, very close to the situation, told me exactly what was going on with that. So just a heads up, in the future, I hopefully will continue to get inside scoops that will help us out here. So just so you guys know that. So in the first fight of UFC Austin, Roman Dolidze went out there and starched Kyle Daukaus. It was a very impressive performance. I did have Kyle Daukaus here. What did we say, though? Run the tape back. What did we say? Okay, we said the line was off. The line was off. I don't know why Kyle Daukaus had a line next to his name like that. The value was on Roman Dolidze. You guys know I'm not a big fan of his, but you can't doubt that the guy has some serious power. He's a big fighter for the division. He's an athlete, and he was definitely live in that fight. And he showed up, and he went in there and he took Daukaus out. And just again, real quick, going into JP Bays' fight this upcoming weekend, it's kind of a funny narrative. You guys know the whole situation with that. And I don't know if it's funny or whatever you want to call it, but it's an awkward situation, and JP has a lot of pressure on him. Phil Hawes went out there. This was the first leg of a 2-team parlay for me here. I was all over this fight here. I got Phil Hawes at a -250 line. You guys should have all been on Phil Hawes here. This was a great matchup against Deron Winn. Deron Winn is an undersized fighter in the division. He could wrestle, and he could take advantage of fighters that don't have good wrestling and can't keep up the pace. But Phil Hawes has very underrated wrestling. He's a much larger man. I felt very confident he would stuff those takedowns and hurt Winn on the feet. The kryptonite of Phil Hawes is his chin. Deron Winn only has finishes on the feet against guys with losing records years ago, early in his pro career. I wasn't worried about it. And then we'll jump right into the next leg of the parlay, which was Cody Stamann, which I grabbed at -450. You guys could have grabbed this parlay together. You could have put it together early in the week. You could have had a -141 line on that parlay. It was easy money. All right. It was very easy money. Phil Hawes put a clinic out there, and then Cody Stamann went out there, put out Eddie Wineland early. I have much respect for Eddie Wineland, former WEC champ, but he's way past his prime, and the UFC did him a favor to give him one more opportunity, and he wasn't going to compete with a guy like Stamann, who's a very underrated fighter. Okay, so You guys got to capitalize on plays like that. I know a lot of people say you shouldn't do parlays, but personally, I've had a long-term profit, a long-time proven track record of profiting on these 2-leg parlays. So I stick with them. When I feel very confident about 2 legs, a lot of times they hit a lot more than they don't, and they pay off per the odds. So I love them. So that was my largest play on the card. It was a 4-unit play there that cashed. Then we go through the card here. Cody, Maria Oliveira takes out Gloria De Paula, a very close fight. I kind of felt like Gloria edged that fight. What did you guys think about that? Who'd you guys have winning that fight? Ricardo Ramos goes out there, takes out my boy Danny Chavez. I felt for him. Danny Chavez, a very good person, but Ricardo Ramos, a very underrated and talented up-and-coming fighter. He's been around for a while now, had a little hiatus, still very young, throws spinning attacks like nobody. The guy's a stud, and we keep an eye on him moving forward. Jeremiah Wells takes out Court McGee. You guys know I slightly edged Court McGee to win the fight. It was a tough fight. You guys remember I was back and forth on my decision making. You don't really see Court McGee get starched like that typically. Jeremiah Wells, I'm starting to become a big fan of his. This guy is a ferocious fighter. He has that killer instinct. I love the way he screams after he gets the victory. He's just a primal, natural fighter. I love it. I love it. And his stock goes up in my book. I just felt that Court's been looking good recently. He was coming in this fight in great shape. I thought he could have kind of hung on Wells and dragged him into the deep waters. Never had that opportunity. I felt that he should have jumped into the clinch earlier. He didn't. Natalia Silva takes out Jasmine Jasudavicius. Wow, this girl Natalia Silva really impressed. She showed up. Wasn't expecting that. Not a lot of people were. And we keep an eye on her moving forward. Adrian Yanez starches Tony Kelly. This was fun. That was a very fun fight. Shout out to Adrian, and another victory for him, another bonus. Guy's a stud. Gregory Rodriguez takes out Julian Marquez. This was a fight I probably should have targeted to lock in. I felt pretty good about it, but I did stay away from that fight. Damir Ismagulov takes out Gurum Katelazezi, a tough name there. You guys know I did edge Damir to win this fight. I saw a lot of people on Guram. I thought it was a close fight. I thought it could have went either way. The initial announcing of the decision was incorrect. It was a split. I know when they initially said one of the judges had it a draw. It was a split. One judge did give the fight to Guram. I thought he could have won the fight. Could have went either way. What do you guys think about that fight? 2 very, very talented fighters. You could add these guys to that list of the 4 we talked about on this upcoming card. Just guys that are cut from a different cloth. All right, now we get to another official play here. A 1-unit stab on Joaquin Buckley. Now, mind you, going into these last 2 plays, it was already another profitable event because I had 2 small underdog shots here. Buckley came through at a plus 175 line for me. I was up very big going into my last play, which you guys all know what it was. And this covered my next play, which was a 1-unit play, plus give me the 0.75 units back. We were up nice from the 4 unit with the minus 141 line. We were up nice. And then, real quick, we'll say, Joaquin Buckley, man, you keep an eye on him moving forward. This was I should have put more units on it. It was a great matchup. This guy Duryov is overrated. You guys know I felt like that. Even though I had money on him in his UFC debut, the guy is overrated at this point. I truly believe that Buckley is really starting to hit his stride. And then we had the 1-unit play on on Tim Means. It was a big dog play. I grabbed it at plus 200, and a lot of action came in on Holland, and we saw him settle in at a plus 275 Means. So there was in my opinion some value on that line. I was incorrect. You can't get them all right. That was my first loss in 10 official plays. It is what it is. Everybody was trying to jab at me because the whole situation. I think it's all fun. I like it. I like the attention we get over here doing stuff like that. We'll continue to do stuff like that. We're not going to just be bland and boring. If you're a fighter like Kevin Holland that likes to talk crap to all your opponents and mess around with your opponents, you got to be able to take it too. So I'm going to hop in. I'm going to chirp in your ear too a little bit. Why not? If you're that type of guy, there were some lames hopping in my DM like, you shouldn't be messing with the fighters during fight week. It's not cool. That's not my style, bro. Keep that lame stuff out of my DMs. You're not my type of guy. If that's how you feel. Now listen, I don't typically always do stuff like that, but I was having some fun and I was being respectful, and he was the one that was being more aggressive. So I'll give it back to you. Let's have some fun with it. If you don't like that, I don't know what to tell you guys. I don't know. Let's just stir the pot up a little bit, huh? But again, another profitable event. Then we go to the main event, and Calvin Kattar loses to Josh Emmett via split decision. Now, this was a tough one. I thought that Kattar edged this fight. I thought he won 3 of the 5 rounds. I liked the jab that he was throwing out there. I didn't feel he was getting full respect for that jab that he was touching Emmett up with, causing a lot of damage. Emmett was closing the distance, throwing some big power shots to the body. He was aggressive. He was coming forward. But Kattar, in my opinion, did take that fight. It was a little disappointing to not see him get his hand raised, but it was a very close fight, and I'm happy for Emmett too. So that's going to wrap up UFC Austin, which again, we profit 3.59 units on the card. Another great event. Now, if Tim Means would have won, it would have been berserk. But, it wasn't a perfect night, but I'm happy with the results. Hopefully everyone out there that works with me is happy. Once again, I'm delivering over here 4 events in a row that we're really bringing money in. So that wraps up UFC Austin, and it's time to move forward. And now we take a look forward at this exciting card here. Let's go. Jihn Frey taking on Vanessa Demopulous. Vanessa Demopulous coming off a big victory. She really made a name for herself in that fight, the way that she got the armbar after being dropped, the way she jumped in Joe Rogan's lap. The whole thing was a good scene for her. It gave a lot of notoriety to her. She has the look. She's charismatic. She's a funny girl. I think she's going to be in big time trouble though moving forward. I really do. Her striking is lacking. I do truly believe that. Now, her jiu-jitsu is very solid. Her jiu-jitsu is above average, and she'll give girls trouble down there. But she's a very tough girl that thinks that she could hang on the feet for the most part when these fights kick off, and she gets tagged quite often. I've seen her bloodied up and beat down in a couple fights. She's been in some good wars too. She has the heart of a warrior. She's very tough. She's never out, and she will be able to sneak off some W's here and there, having those attributes. But I do truly believe that as she fights high-level opponents, she's going to get dropped. She's going to get cut open. She's going to get hurt on the feet. She's going to lose decisions, getting outpointed on the feet. Her striking is just a little bulky, a little cloggy. It's not that crisp. Her jabs, she kind of just tugs with her jabs. She doesn't really flick them out there and pop them. I'm not a big fan of her boxing, to be quite honest. Her kicks come in a little bit telegraphed and slow, but her jiu-jitsu is pretty good. She's very flexible. She could pull her legs completely over her head. Her guard is ridiculous. Now, Jihn Frey is getting up there in age, but she's still very physically fit. You see her putting in some work here. She's more of a striker. She's a striking-based fighter, the former Invicta champion. I think that Frey has an avenue to win this fight. She has good takedown defense. She's very physically strong. She knows how to stuff a takedown. I think that as long as she plays this fight smart, doesn't go down to the mat and engage in that type of fight, I see her using her tricky southpaw stance to outpoint Demopulous on the feet and potentially open up Demopulous, cause some blood and damage her, hurt her, maybe a TKO stoppage due to a cut or something like that. Frey's a decent fighter. Coming off 2 victories in a row where she took out Ashley Yoder, who's a similar fighter to Demopulous to an extent, the Gloria DePaula fight, and then before that, losses to Luma Lekbunmi and Kay Hansen. The Kay Hansen fight, she was up before getting caught with that sub late in the fight. That was her UFC debut, so some octagon jitters there. Frey will have a 3-inch reach advantage and a 1-inch height advantage. She's a little bit of the longer, rangier opponent for her to use her striking and take this victory. I will pick Frey to win the fight. If you go over to Bovada right now, you're going to see the line of minus 290 next to Frey's name. She's a pretty hefty favorite there, almost a 3-1 favorite. The comeback on Demopulous at plus 230, I'd probably say the value is more so on Demopulous. From a betting standpoint, the value is more so on Demopulous. And if you want to even throw a prop bet of Demopulous via sub, she's always likely to pull off a sub. Or I shouldn't say likely, she's always live for that sub. So we go from one beef of the tellers with Kevin Holland over to another beef with Brian Kelleher, my 2 arch nemesis. I think it makes it fun for when these guys have to throw down. It stirs the pot up and it makes me excited for these fights. The Kelleher one's kind of fizzled, but for Kevin Holland's next fight, it's going to be a real joy to watch as we look to fade him. But are we going to be fading Brian Kelleher here? As far as for my official pick, yes, I am taking Mario Bautista to win this fight. It's great to see the UFC finally giving Kelleher a match that's against a suitable opponent. I feel like Kelleher has had a lot of layups. Now, he's been in there with some tough talent as well. Of course, Umar Nurmagomedov in his last fight. But before that, victories over Kevin Kroom, Domingo Pilarte, victory over Ray Rodriguez. I can even go back further if you guys like. Now, like I said, though, he's been sprinkled in with some tough opponents, and those are the fights that he just loses. But as far as will he get a victory over a fight that's reasonable for him, this is a fight that's there for him like that. Could he go out there and take out a guy, Mario Bautista? Mario Bautista went out there and looked phenomenal in his last fight against Jay Perrin. Jay Perrin took that fight on short notice, but the performance that Bautista put was still alarming as far as how good he looked. I think that he's making major strides in his game. He's 28 years old. We've seen Bautista go out there, throw wild, flying attacks and really hurt opponents. He's a well-rounded fighter. He can knock you out. He could sub you. He's technical on the feet. He's a fighter that I've grown to enjoy watching since he's bursted on the scene. And the fight that I was talking about that he actually that he bursted on the scene with was the Miles Johns fight. I think that was a fight that really did impress me when he went out there and took out Miles Johns, a guy I do have respect for. Victory over Jin Susan before that, but then the Corey Sandhagen was his debut. Corey Sandhagen, one of the top guys in the division. He was young then. Was Bautista. It was a learning experience. I think Bautista has a lot more potential than a guy like Kelleher, who's 35 years old now. Kelleher comes into this fight with a 3-inch height disadvantage, comes into this fight with a 5-inch reach disadvantage. I think Bautista can really strike from the outside. Kelleher, he does have some good power in his hands. He's not extremely technical, throws his shots a little bit wide, but he does carry some big power. He can clip you, could drop you. I think Bautista will be a little bit too sharp for that. He'll see those shots coming. And I think that Bautista's smart enough to avoid the Kelleher. Kelleher does have a good guillotine, almost as good as the MMA fortune teller's guillotine. The teller does have a really good guillotine, believe it or not. I poke fun with it, but I wouldn't want to be locked up in that thing. You could talk to some of my training partners about that. But poking some fun here. But Kelleher really does have a legit guillotine. If he's able to snatch Bautista's neck up, you could potentially see a finish there. But overall, I see Bautista being the man that's the better fighter this upcoming Saturday, getting the job done. We'll take a look at the live line on this fight. And right now, you'll see a line on this fight with Bautista being a -165 favorite with the comeback on Kelleher at +130. I think this is a pretty accurate line. I do. I think this is a pretty accurate line. I'll favor Bautista even at the -165 over Kelleher with the value. Again, remember now, Kelleher's getting up there in age, and he looks for those power shots, but I think you're kind of banking on him to really clip Bautista with one of those shots. I don't think he's going to strike Bautista tit for tat for 3 rounds. So don't expect a decision from Kelleher, in my opinion. Kelleher needs to get a finish. Here. Cody Durden taking on JP Bays. Both of these fighters coming off some tough experiences in their careers. Cody Durden just went out there and got absolutely starched by the very hot up-and-coming youngster, Muhammad Mokaev. I think you guys are going to want to chalk that fight up a little bit to the fact that Mokaev is extremely talented. That's kind of my opinion on that. I think that Cody Durden's still a solid fighter. He's tough. JP Bays has really been having a tough time as of recently. 2 losses in a row. They threw him in there with Montel Jackson, a guy that was a much larger man. They're not even near the same weight class. They just threw Bays in there. So they kind of owe this guy a little something, in my opinion. Before that, he got brutalized by Bruno Silva. Bruno Silva, one of the disciples of Henry Cejudo. Bruno Silva is a very, very tough customer. He can crack, he can wrestle, he has jiu-jitsu. He's an underrated fighter. Before that, the victory on Dana White's Contender Series, where he was able to really out-grapple and kind of out-muscle Jacob Silva there. That was back when he was still with Cheyenne Bays. That's when they had the whole power couple thing going. A lot has changed since then. JP Bays is in dire need to get this victory here. I had the pleasure of chatting it up with him for a while. We talked about a lot of things. I think he's a genuine dude. I think he's a good-hearted dude. I think he just went through some tough times, and he really, really needs this fight. If he loses this fight, that's 3 losses in the UFC. I think that you will see his next fight after that be outside of the octagon. So if he wants to hang around in the UFC, if he wants to hang around in this up-and-coming talented division of the flyweight division, he needs to go out here and get a victory. You see here, he says, look good, feel good, performed good, or maybe perform good. I think that he's looking to rejuvenate himself, and it all starts this upcoming Saturday. That's my point here. JP Buys has some serious or some very, very solid wrestling credentials. He was a very tough and accoladed South African wrestler since he was a young kid. Cody Durden can wrestle himself, a college wrestler. Cody also has boxing experience. This is why I'm going to be edging Cody Durden here. Let you guys know right now, I am edging Cody Durden to win this fight. As much as I want JP to win this fight, I got to be honest with you guys. I just think that Durden might take this fight. So first off, both these guys are going through a lot of adversity as of recently, but I know that Durden is going to be extremely motivated after what just happened to him. Cody Durden, in my opinion, he has that Nate Diaz type of boxing, that Nate Diaz type style. He'll keep coming. He gets better as the fight goes. We've seen him really start to turn it on in some of his fights as the fight starts to go on. JP Buys is just a little bit more tight, a little bit more muscular. He's more explosive and powerful as JP to an extent, but I think that Durden will survive those types of onslaughts and they'll continue to exchange. And JP hasn't really shown me too much on the feet, and I think that Durden might be a little bit more fluid there. There's potential for Durden to crack him, hurt him, and now I say that not confidently at all, and in fact, kind of pulling for JP here. I kind of want to see JP get the job done here. So this is a tough fight here, but you guys know, although contrary to belief, I always do pick the fighter that I see win this fight. There's no bias here. I know some of you guys tried to say that recently. No, there's no bias when it comes to my selections. I'm going to pick Durden here. I think there's a potential that he clips JP on the feet. JP is going to have some big time emotions going into this fight, and not like the type of emotions that Durden has where he's just motivated after taking a loss. I think JP has something different going on with Roman just getting that big victory in the first round. I think JP is going to want to go out and get that first round knockout just like he did, to kind of get a little something under his belt after that whole situation, which you guys know about. JP mentioned that he might be hopping on for an interview down the line. We'll talk about some things. We'll see how that goes, but 2-inch height advantage for Durden. Reach is the same. I will edge Durden to win the fight. And right now, as we take a look at the live line on Bovada.lv, this is pretty much a pick'em with the slight lean on JP Buys. So Cody Durden, the slight underdog, but basically a pick'em fight. I think that Durden's going to get the job done, and it's going to be a tough night for Buys. Not too confident, though. Raulian Paiva taking on Sergey Morozov. Two very talented fighters. Raulian Paiva coming off that tough loss against Sean O'Malley. That wasn't the greatest showing of himself, but I think that also just shows how talented Sean O'Malley is on the feet. And if you play around with him there, you definitely can get burned by fire there. So, and that's what happened to Raulian Paiva. He was trying to kind of exchange with O'Malley, trying to prove a point. O'Malley was just a magician out there. And, Paiva has had some really impressive performances. Of course, I would say, in my opinion, his most impressive performance is what he did against Kyler Phillips. Some people thought Kyler should have won the fight. It was a very close fight, but the fact that Paiva dealt with so much adversity in that fight and then came back and ended up doing some late damage and doing enough to steal the fight. He's a well-rounded fighter. You see him here with the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt strapped around his waist. He could strike. He is just a solid, well-rounded fighter, a fighter that has previously fought down at the flyweight division. This fight taking place in the bantamweight division. I think that was a smart move for him. He does have a long frame, especially for the flyweight division. Still comes into this fight 2 inches taller than his opponent, with a 2.5-inch reach advantage. And again, this was a guy that fought down at the flyweight division. I think that was a mistake. 21-4 as a pro, a world of experience, 25 professional fights. Morozov, very battle tested as well. 22 professional fights. Morozov, a solid wrestler. And his last fight was a tricky fight for him. Looked very good early against Douglas Silva de Andrade. Dropped him, hurt Douglas bad early in that fight. And then he started to fade. It was a war. And eventually, he did get caught with that rear naked choke later in the fight. And I think that should extremely motivate him for this fight as well. That was a very tough fight. He got caught lacking a little bit in there. I think he was on his high horse at one point in time in the fight. He was really grooving in that fight and kind of gave Douglas the ability to come back into that fight. I still am high on Morozov. A fight that's worth noting for sure is the fight against Umar Nurmagomedov. Probably the most closely contested match we've seen Umar engaged in. Sergey actually really was in there grappling with him and exchanging in some chain wrestling events with him that were pretty close. So just understand that Morozov does have that wrestling. His striking is coming around. I believe he is at American Top Team. Yes, he is. He's still training at American Top Team. You see him here training with the former title challenger, Thiago Alves, the Pitbull, now the bare knuckle phenom, bare knuckle FC phenom. But Morozov striking is coming around. I think he could hang with Julian Paiva there. I could see him hurting Paiva there as well, or vice versa. It's going to be close on the feet. I think that if Morozov slows things down, he could win some wrestling exchanges, can maybe solidify some rounds like that. And who's this over here? Who's he training with right here? Muhammad Makayev, right there, right to his right. So training with some solid guys, and that is over at American Top Team. So you guys know that is something that I'm always high on. And, all these factors put together is going to lead me to slightly edge Morozov. He's a talented fighter, but Paiva is as well. And we'll take a look. We'll take a look at the line on this fight over at Best Fight Odds, where we could see a variety of sports betting lines, excuse me. And for this fight, you'll see it's a very close line. Sergey Morozov right now from that minus 135 to the minus 140 range with the slight dog line next to Paiva's name, plus 115 or whatnot. So line's not crazy. A lot of people think this should be a closely contested matchup. I tend to agree. It should be a fun one. I will edge Morozov to win the fight. Downtown, TJ Brown taking on Shayilan Nuerdanbieke. Another tough last name there. We'll just call him Shayilan, the Chinese fighter who is 28 years old now, very physically fit, decently well-rounded. TJ Brown, a guy that has a wrestling pedigree, but his striking has really been coming around. Now, TJ Brown got that victory on Dana White's Contender Series. He looked very good in that fight. Since then, drops his first 2 UFC fights, loses to Jordan Griffin and Danny Chavez. Quite honestly, I wasn't too high on him after those performances. I kind of turned my back on him, if I'm being honest. I think those performances were, I thought at the time, kind of telling of who he was as a fighter. But this is the fight game. Fighters go back to the drawing board. They continue to work on things. They evolve. And that's exactly what TJ Brown did. Had a great fight against Kai Kamaka, a very close fight, but again, showed to be very well-rounded and have the heart of a warrior. And then in the next fight against Charles Rosa, that was the best version of TJ Brown that we've ever seen, mixing things up, just absolutely dominating Charles Rosa. Now, was that due to the fact that Charles Rosa has been really putting out some questionable performances and is kind of an overrated fighter that's past his prime and whatnot? Or was it due to the fact that TJ Brown is just surging? I lean more so to the fact that TJ Brown's surging. I think he's becoming a better version of himself, like I said. And, this is a good matchup here. Shayilan is going to bring the fight to him too. They're going to meet. They have similar styles, similar well-rounded styles. TJ Brown, from a physical standpoint, he'll have a solid reach, a nice 4.5-inch reach advantage. That's something that I liked when I was looking at this. TJ Brown's boxing coming around. He's been throwing some crisp jabs out there. I would like to see him really pump the jab and strike from the outside. But if they want to lock horns and engage in so some wrestling exchanges, some grappling exchanges, I could see Brown getting the better of those situations. He might not dominate them, similarly to what he just did to Rosa. I think that Shayilan is he's well versed there as well, but I think TJ Brown will win those exchanges enough to win a decision here. I could see him winning a decision in this fight, and it may play out to be a very entertaining fight. So mark my words on this. I think this fight has the potential to be a very entertaining fight. Now, Shayilan coming off that victory against Sean Seriano. Before that, I lost to Joshua Kulibau, who's been looking really good. And then before that, a lot of fights over in Asia. And I think this is a fight that TJ Brown should prevail in. We'll pull up the Bovada.lv line on this particular fight. And you will see that TJ Brown is just slightly over a 2-1 favorite to win this fight. Not necessarily crazy about that line. I'm not going to say the line's completely off. I do think he's the better fighter. Not really crazy about that minus 210. If you're grabbing TJ Brown, I would have liked that line more like a minus 180 line, minus 170 line. Shayilan, still young, still working on things. He's an explosive athlete. And like I said, very physically fit, very muscular, explosive, and well-rounded with the skill set. Let's see if he can make this a closely contested match where these guys are going tit for tat and brawling it out back and forth, exchanging all types of strikes and wrestling exchanges, all types of wild stuff. Maybe like a fight like the Kai Kamaka versus TJ Brown fight. Then you never know who's going to prevail there. But I say TJ Brown will be the guy getting his hand raised. We got a sleeper fight here. Tafon and Nchukwi taking on Carlos Ulberg. Two guys with kickboxing pedigrees. Both these guys very, very well-rounded strikers. Two explosive, big-time athletes. This has all the potential to be a very fun fight here. This is one of my sleeper fights in the card as well. This is one of those fights that make this overall fight card exciting. Tafon and Nchukwi. Now, got to talk about this real quick. In his last fight, I had a large wager on Azamat Murzakanov, and it was a big night for me. It was a very profitable event there. Azamat was losing that fight all the way to the third round, okay? And Tafon was looking very, very good in that fight. In fact, you know, my antennas were sticking up. I was really, looking to analyze. I was analyzing everything that he was putting in that fight, and I was putting him on my radar for future reference as far as betting, because I really believe that he's making some major strides in his game, and he's a solid fighter. But what did he do in the third round, man? He kind of froze up. And he had a mental error in there, and he got hit with the flying knee. I do believe it was a flying knee, and then he got finished down on the mat. I was going crazy when that happened. It was the flying knee that dropped him. I think he got followed up there. I was going crazy. Brought in a lot of money for me, and it was just a very exciting finish. Now, that loss there was about 3 months ago. So about 3 months of time to recuperate from the knockout. Carlos Ulberg, a sharpshooter, a guy that trains with Israel Adesanya over there at City Kickboxing and whatnot. He's a stud. He's 4 inches taller than Tafon here, but they do have the same reach at 77 inches. Carlos Ulberg really disappointed me in his last fight. I had an official play on him. I believe I had a mix and a parlay. He did come through. He did win. He was super, super hesitant against the Water Buffalo, a fighter that I do believe is not a UFC caliber fighter. And who I'm talking about is the Water Buffalo, Fabio Charant, a guy that a lot of people go out there and style on, and a guy that you would think that Carlos Ulberg would have went out there, pushed the pace with his striking and really finished and got out of there. Was not the case. Carlos was dropping his hands a lot throughout that fight, putting himself in danger, a lot of unneeded danger. At the end of the day, he won that fight by being the quicker athlete coming in and out and whatnot. But that fight was way too uncomfortable from a betting standpoint, and I think it raised some flags with him, in my opinion. We also seen him knocked out against the big boy, Kennedy Nchukwi. Okay, so fighting another African fighter here with that wee woo woo last name, man. These guys are no joke. These guys are stud athletes, and they're warriors, and Tafon is cut from that cloth. I'm taking Tafon and Nchukwi to win this fight. That's who I'm taking here. Tafon has nasty kicks. I could see him blasting the body kicks. I could see him clipping Ulberg on the chin, putting him out. But more importantly, I could see Ulberg being hesitant in there. I could see him very, very much so fearing a guy like Tafon and being on the back foot and him losing a decision anyway. All right. And again, before Tafon was put out against Azamat, he was looking very, very good. It looks like he's making major strides in his game still. And we're talking about a guy that's only 27 years old, still big things to come from him. And as we look at the live betting line right now, you're going to see that Carlos Ulberg is the slight favorite at minus 20 with the comeback on Nchukwi at even odds. If Ulberg's going to win this fight, he's going to have to really move around on the outside, but still give enough activity to score some points from the outside. And again, of course, there's potential for Ulberg to get a knockout as well. We did just see Nchukwi freeze up and get knocked out. There is that potential as well, but I do think that Nchukwi gets the job done here. That's my official pick. Chris, the action man, Curtis, taking on Rodolfo, the black belt hunter, Vieira. Vieira, one of the more decorated jiu-jitsu players we've ever seen come over to the sport of MMA. He's a beast of a man. He's really a specialist type of fighter. that can give specific fighters a lot of problems if they're not able to keep the fight on the feet, if they're not able to defend those submission attempts. Rodolfo Vieira will go out there and crank that on you. Chris Curtis, a well-rounded fighter. Chris Curtis has a bit of an interesting history with the UFC. He had a victory over on Dana White's Contender Series. He did not get the contract after pulling off that fight. Chris Curtis was a guy that was really respected in the game up until that point too. A training partner of a lot of big-time fighters. He was well known. It was very surprising that he didn't get the contract, if you guys remember that episode. But what did he do after not getting that contract? It's been nothing but stellar performances. Even his losses, they're respectable. After that victory on Dana White's Contender Series, goes out there, strings off 2 victories in a row, defeats Andre Fiallo over at PFL, 2 losses in a row to Magomed Kiramov, who is a stud fighter. If you're not familiar with him, he is coming off a loss himself over to Ray Cooper. And then again, Curtis having a loss as well to Ray Cooper. But Ray Cooper and Magomed are 2 of the staples over in PFL, 2 of the top fighters in that promotion. If you're not familiar with Ray Cooper III, Ray Cooper can crack the tough Hawaiian or Polynesian fighter. So that was his last loss. Again, Ray Cooper right now is riding some extreme momentum. So since that loss, though, strings off 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 victories in a row. And that was after taking out Kenny Robertson, an ex-UFC fighter, I believe, over there at ex-MMA, getting the shot in the UFC. I believe took that fight on short notice. May have taken both these fights on short notice. I forget. I know one of them was a short notice fight, but goes out there, starches Phil Hawes and Brendan Allen, 2 legitimate middleweight UFC fighters. And he let the world know that he should have been fighting in the UFC. And a lot of people believe this. I believed this at the time when I saw him not get the contract. I was a little surprised back then. So now, in regards to this fight, as we mentioned, Vieira is an extreme specialist, and he's a different type of jiu-jitsu guy because he's very, very physically strong, and he's been working on his takedown, his takedowns, and he's getting better and better with his wrestling. Obviously, if he rips guys down to the mat early, he's extremely live to get that sub. We saw him just come off that victory against Dustin Stoltzfus. The fight went a little bit later, and Vieira showed that he was working on one of the holes in his game, which is his cardio. Ended up getting a later submission. He hung tough in that fight. Now on the feet, I expect Curtis to be strides above Vieira. I expect him to be able to tee off on him. Vieira is very stiff. He's very muscular. Also, something that's very alarming was the performance that Vieira had against Anthony Hernandez, where he completely gassed out as that fight went on, and Hernandez was able to do whatever he wanted to him after weathering the storm. And that's a problem, because if Curtis just weathers an early storm from Vieira, I think Curtis is much more dangerous than Hernandez, and he'll pick him apart and knock him out. So this fight's going to come down to the fact, can Vieira get this fight down to the mat early or survive some type of onslaught throughout the fight and eventually get a hold of Curtis's neck, pull off some type of rear naked choke or some type of sub. Let's not narrow it down just to some simple choke, because Vieira is a very polished jiu-jitsu player. He can snatch an arm. He can snatch a variety of things. You see him working on his striking here. I don't think that his striking is ever going to catch up to a guy like Chris Curtis personally. So I really hope for his sake that he's not trying to hang with him on the feet for very long. But there is that avenue, of course, for him to pull off the submission. I'm feeling that Chris Curtis is going to be a very tough stylistic matchup for Vieira. But also keep in mind that Vieira got into the MMA game a little bit later with that jiu-jitsu background, so he's working on all different avenues of his game, and this is a stud athlete. We saw how far he took his abilities in the jiu-jitsu world. So, he has that champion mindset. He's going to start to really excel in the MMA world. He's going to start to pick things up quicker than the average Joe. But I think that he'll just be a step behind Curtis, a guy that has 26 professional fights compared to the 9 professional fights Vieira has. And I think that he could be in trouble on the feet. Curtis, the shorter man, but with a 2-inch reach advantage. I think he can land from the outside, and I pick Curtis to win this fight. Let's see what the odds are on Bovada. We'll take a look here on Bovada.lv, and you'll see Curtis as a -159, with Vieira having that +130 underdog line next to his name. Maybe you want to target I shouldn't say it like that, but if you're looking to take Vieira, you probably want to take him via sub. I don't really see him winning a decision. I'm sure the sub prop line is going to be very similar to him winning a decision, because that's the avenue of victory for him. I got Chris Curtis to get the job done, and I'll even say Chris Curtis finishes his fight via TKO. Umar Nurmagomedov taking on Nate Maness. It's an exciting fight. Everybody's been very hyped up to watch Umar step inside the octagon every time that he has since he's made his official debut with the UFC. People have been anticipating him even before he signed with the UFC. Obviously, having the last name Nurmagomedov, being the cousin, I believe, of Khabib, a fighter that's just been being groomed from such a young age around some of the best fighters on planet Earth. And an exciting fighter too, not just a guy that has the grappling skills that goes out there and looks to ragdoll opponents, but a fighter that is really a striker. He really is. I believe that Umar is a striking based fighter. I mean, he's a well-rounded fighter. He could do it all, but he really loves the striking, and that's been the word that's been coming out of AKA Javier Mendez, and everyone's just been saying that he loves his striking. He's been working on his striking, and I think he'll give a lot of guys problems on the feet. I think that he's going to be one of the Dagestani fighters that is a little bit cut from a different cloth, in the sense that he's going to be more than willing to go out there and knock dudes out, hit them with stunning spinning kicks, all types of stunning strikes. And I'll be excited to watch this guy fight every time that he's scheduled to fight on an event. Of course, what makes it exciting as well is the fact that he's still undefeated and has the potential to run the table with an undefeated streak all the way to the belt. There's just no question that he has that type of ability. There's no reason why you would doubt that. And I know some people don't like when you jump on a fighter so early, claiming for him to possibly have these huge accolades, but I don't mind that. You guys know that I've liked to gravitate towards specific fighters early. I think it makes it fun, and Umar, without a doubt, is one of those types of fighters I gravitate towards being a potential champion. There's just no way you can question that. All right, so now, the bantamweight division is a very stacked division. Nate Maness, a very underrated fighter, 14-1. With his one loss coming by way of, I believe it was that French fighter that hit him with the sidekick. He caught him. That was about five fights ago. And that was Taylor Lapalus. I believe he is French too. And he hit him with that sidekick. That's correct. And since then, he strung off 4 fights in a row, taking out Kellen Van Camp, Johnny Munoz Jr., Luke Sanders, and Johnny Munoz Jr. was just put out by Tony Gravely. And Tony Gravely is a tough fighter. So Tony Gravely was the biggest victory of Nate Maness's career, in my opinion, and Nate Maness is just coming off that victory. Nate Maness can crack on the feet. He has good striking, good boxing. He could grapple. He has very underrated wrestling and takedown defense. And you see him getting in work over here with Trace Ekman, a Division I athlete, a Division I wrestler. And you know that Nate Maness has been strictly working on his takedown defense. You have to be up to par there, because it doesn't matter if you could strike it if you can't keep the fight there when Umar just goes out there and rips you down to the mat, which he could do. But again, we talked about the fact that Umar does like to strike, and if he does engage in a striking match with Nate Maness, I do believe that Nate Maness is a little bit more alive than a lot of you want to believe, especially more alive than a -900 or a -1,000 line, which I believe he might be a -1,000. -1,200 on Bovada.lv. All right. I'm not crazy about that type of line. I think that Umar has more to prove. Obviously, he's so well-rounded and he's so technically sound with everything he does. But Nate Maness is a talented fighter too. It only takes one shot. If you crack somebody in the chin, we saw Islam Makhachev put out in the feet back in the day. You never know when you could see something similar to that. A stud fighter that just gets caught early in their career while they're still learning things. Umar's still learning things. He's young. That being said, Umar Nurmagomedov should go out here, get the job done, dominate, put another victory under his resume, an impressive victory as he cruises to the top of the division and cruises into future stardom. Thiago Moises taking on Christos Giagos. 2 fighters coming off losses here, but 2 impressive fighters, in my opinion. 2 fighters that are well-rounded, two warriors that can give any opponent in the UFC a tough night if they're not up to par that night. So two capable opponents. You guys know Christos Giagos, a guy I've had on the show twice, a fellow Greek, a cool dude. It's funny, he ended up moving to South Florida, moved into my old city where I grew up. I see him over there enjoying life with his fiance or wife. It's funny, just, kind of hanging out in the streets of where I kind of grew up for a point in time. It's just Christos Giagos coming all the way from California too. So kind of funny coming all the way across the country there. Thiago Moises also training in South Florida at American Top Team, a long time American Top Team product. Thiago Moises, the jiu-jitsu specialist, but a guy that's been really working on his striking and having success there over his last couple fights. Now, the fight where he really impressed with his striking was the Alexander Hernandez fight. Looked very good in that fight on the feet, was hanging with Bobby Green as well. Now, the Michael Johnson fight, he was kind of getting picked apart a little bit and then ended up snatching that ankle. But the fights where we saw his striking come around was the Bobby Green fight, and the Alexander Hernandez was really the fight where his striking came around. Losses to Islam Makhachev and a loss to Joel Alvarez recently. Joel Alvarez starting to get some momentum there, and then you guys obviously know the deal with Islam. Christos Giagos coming off a loss to Arman Tsarukyan. Speaking of fighting extremely tough competition, both these men been facing some tough guys. But before that, the very fun fight of Sean Seriano and Christos Giagos, where Giagos felt some early adversity but ended up pulling that Darce choke off, taking out Carlton Maness, where he dominated him with the wrestling. The loss to Jerkar Klose, and then the victory against Demir Hasnovic. So Christos Giagos actually has a solid wrestling pedigree. He has that wrestling in his back pocket. He's a stud athlete. This guy really puts the work in. And since making the move over to Florida, he's been training over at Sanford MMA. You guys know I'm very high in that gym, training with some of the best men in the world. So you're going to see his game evolving. And that's what we've been seeing very recently from him. He's taking a step up, in my opinion. I know he put in work with Team Blackhouse and some good gyms back in the day too. But what Sanford MMA is doing right now is really unprecedented. There's very few gyms that are doing what they're doing. And I think that will continue to raise Christos Giagos' game. So I expect a better and better version of him every time we see him out there. And the guy he's just always involved in making himself a better fighter. If you watch his IG, everything he does is physical. And you see him over here throwing a backflip. Christos Giagos is very active on the feet. I think he could hang with Thiago Moises on the feet. That's a close matchup. Moises, I'll give him the jiu-jitsu edge, but I think that if Giagos can avoid those submissions and reversals and whatnot, and can be grounded and be a little disciplined down on the mat, he can control some positions with his wrestling and solidify some rounds. You see him over here. He was in Michael Johnson's corner just recently. I'm sure they were talking about some things. Obviously, Michael Johnson had fought Thiago Moises, so I'm sure being Henry Hooft and Michael Johnson, and these guys have been preparing for this opponent. They know a lot about Moises. That's a positive. I think there's definitely the ability that Giagos goes out here and gets the job done. I think that this is a tough fight, but Moises is coming off 2 losses in a row. The Alvarez fight, he got hurt. He got beat up in that fight. Giagos is very mentally tough. I think that he comes out looking to take Moises' head off. I could see him in a war. I could see him clipping Moises, and I could see Moises caving in a little bit. Moises still very young too, but Giagos also 32 in the prime of his career. This is a great fight. Giagos with the 1-inch reach advantage, not much there, an inch taller, slightly larger frame. I think there's more value on Giagos in this fight. I think it's a very close fight. I think this fight can go any way. And I'm going to side with my boy Giagos here. I'm going to side with my boy. He's a 2-1 underdog here. It's a very close fight. We've seen Giagos at sometimes freeze up a little bit in his fights, kind of have some mental errors where he's doing good and then he'll kind of drop the ball a little bit. I think he's been working on those types of things at Sanford MMA. I think he has been cleaning those things up, and there's potential for him just to hit his stride here and get a W against a big name and Moises. And I'm really hoping that's the case. And big shout out to my boy Christos there. And that's not just a biased pick. Obviously, I do have that connection to Christos. We're cool. I truly believe this is a fight that he could take. I truly believe that this is a fight that he can easily go out there and win. This should be his fight. I hope so. Alain Boudat taking on Josh Parisian. Now, Josh Parisian, I really like this guy. He's a very humble, good person. He's a big boy. he's coming off a tough loss to Dontel Mays, really, if we're being honest. He kind of got thrown around a little bit in that fight, ripped around by his arm, and eventually he was submitted. Or no, excuse me, he was finished via KO, TKO. I know that I was just rewatching the tape on that fight, and Dontel Mays was really cranking on his arm as well, looking for subs and just kind of ragdolling him a little bit. That wasn't really a good sight because Josh Parisian's a good guy and a big guy, and he kind of favors his grappling. And when Dontel Mays goes out there and does that too, that's not really a good look. Alan Boudat, a guy that has a big frame as well, 79-inch reach, even with Parisian there. Coming out of the MMA factory, we know he's a longtime training partner of Cyril Gahn. He's a striking first type of fighter. He's a little flaky, if you guys catch my drift. He's one of those fighters that's kind of like an athlete. He's a very finesse type of dude, but he's not really... I shouldn't say it like that. He's not a fighter. I mean, he's definitely a fighter. He's fighting in the UFC, but you guys know what I'm talking about. He's kind of missing a little bit of something. And again, he's working on his overall game. I don't want to be too harsh on the guy. We've seen him kind of cave in some of his fights. We've seen some fights where he was starting off good and then he kind of fizzled. You see the no contest here against Rodrigo Nascimento. He looked good early in that fight, and then Nascimento just said, you know what, I'm going to go take you out. And then the second round, I believe it was, just marched forward, and Alan Boudat completely cowered in that fight. He completely caved. He just gave in and just got destroyed. And it's like he knew it was going to happen. It was a very strange fight, if you guys remember that fight. The loss to Tom Aspinall. We know Aspinall's a stud. He went out there, starched him. The loss to Parker Porter, got taken down a little bit late in the fight. So if there is an avenue for Parisian to win, maybe late in the fight he gets some takedowns. I really want to push for a Josh Parisian pick here, but my gut tells me that Alan Boudat, I know he's 34, he's up there in age, but only 11 professional fights. He's working on his overall game still. I think he has more to prove, and I kind of feel that Boudat gets the better of the striking exchanges against Parisian. And from what Parisian has shown me recently, I'm just not that high on him. And even the victory over Rock Martinez, that was a via split decision, is kind of hanging on him. He was much larger and barely got the job done. This is a very tricky fight, and I kind of hope that Parisian wins, again, because if you've seen interviews with him, he's a very humble, good human being. I lean that Alan Boudat gets this job done. He'll be the more technical fighter. He's working on his grappling. Parisian did not look good against Dontel Mays, and I'm not going to pick him in this spot here. So my pick is Alan Boudat. Now, as far as from a betting perspective, we'll check the Bovada.lv line, which you will see. It's basically a pick 'em. Basically a dead pick 'em. For some reason, Parisian is a minus 109 and not a minus 110 to the minus 110. You don't typically see that line in Bovada, but one little point there less for Parisian. So as slight of an underdog as you'll ever see. How about that? As slight as an underdog as you'll ever see on Josh Parisian. I got Boudat to win the fight on pick 'em odds. Hey guys, real quick, you guys know we're checking out these lines on Bovada.lv. I always have that option to you guys. If you want to sign up through Bovada.lv, reach out to me. I'll give you my referral link. If you sign up and you deposit a little bit of money, I'm going to give you all my bets for free for this upcoming fight card. Not just that, I will also give you my picks for any specific fight card that you want. If you don't want to use it for this upcoming weekend, I'll give it to you for whenever you want. But if you're looking for a new sports book, that's amazing. They pay out good. The whole system is just very clean and crisp. Reach out to me. I can answer any questions you have about the sports book as well. So reach out to me if you're interested. Neil Magny taking on Shavkat Rakhmonov. One of the hottest up-and-coming fighters in the fight game in the UFC. This guy is proven to be a well-rounded fighter. He's just such an interesting guy. In my opinion, he's just like a video game character. You see him at the weigh-ins towering over his opponents with the hat that he wears, his flag. You know, I think he's some type of wolf hat or whatever. He's looking down. I mean, this guy is a straight-up... he's an action hero. This guy's like an action figure. I don't know. The word is he's a direct descendant from Genghis Khan. I mean, I love the whole thing, man. I love the whole shtick. I really hope that this guy continues to rise to the top. He's brought money in for me. He's a guy that I've said very early on that I was very high on. I said he's one of those guys that I attach my name to. In his last fight, people were doubting him. Let's not forget, people were high on Carlston Harris too, who has a solid resume. People were talking about Harris winning that fight. And that was not the case for me over here. I had action on Rakhmonov. We had him locked up, and he is still undefeated. Went out there, hit Carlton Harris with a spinning hook kick. followed it down with the strikes. We've seen him go out there, pull off submissions. Choking out Alex Oliveira early in the fight. And he's a finisher. He's a well-rounded fighter. He's explosive. He's only 27 years old. Another fighter that has championship potential. Taking on a very, very battle-tested Neil Magny, a very well-rounded fighter, a guy that just goes out there and makes it look so easy time and time and again. I'm very, very excited for this fight here. I think that Shavkat is definitely going to get the job done here. I'm not going to doubt him now. Now, I do think that Neil Magny, like I said, is a very big test for anybody. And Neil Magny realistically can go out there and always get a victory. His performance against Max Griffin was impressive. Got hurt early, was never out of the fight. He's very mentally tough, ex-Army veteran. He is an Army veteran and an ex-Army member. Nothing but respect for Neil Magny. I think that his frame, his well-roundedness, his grappling, his striking can give anybody problems. It looks like he just had a kid. Congratulations to him. See him over here with Henzo as well. Nothing but respect to Neil Magny, but there's no way I'm picking against Shavkat Rakhmonov. I was teasing Kevin Holland with that whole situation. We've been going back and forth. We're talking about, what's to come in the future, about making some bets. And I hope to see Kevin Holland match up with guys like Shavkat Rakhmonov, Sean Brady. When you look at the top of the welterweight division, there's some real legit killers, and Shavkat Rakhmonov is leading the way with the potential. All right, so if he goes out here and starches Neil Magny, which I think he does, I think he gets a finish in this fight. I think he gets a finish. I think that you're going to see some big time momentum next to Shavkat Rakhmonov's name, which you already see it, but even more so. Let's see where he's at right now. You got guys like Khamzat Chimaev all the way up there. You have Shavkat Rakhmonov all the way at the number 15 ranking. That's why you got to be wary about these rankings, because they don't really make sense. I know Shavkat has more to prove, but Shavkat goes out here. He takes out Michel Pereira. He takes out the Leech. He takes out Jeff Neal. He takes out Michael Chiesa. He's going to take out Neil Magny, the number 10 ranked fighter. So you're going to see him jump up. Sean Brady's a stud. I pick him above him. I pick him above Jorge Masvidal. He goes out there, dominates Stephen Thompson in the grappling. He goes out there and takes down Vicente Luque. He destroys Bilal Muhammad on the feet. He doesn't let Bilal go to a boring decision. All right, now you want to talk about some stud fighters at the top of the game. We'll see how he performs against these guys up here. That's where Shavkat Rakhmonov is. Take a look at the line next to his name right now. You're looking at a minus 400 line, and I think he gets the job done. All right, so we've been talking about these fighters with extreme potential, future championship potential. Arman Tsarukyan, throw his name right in the hat. Mateusz Gamrot, you could throw his name in the hat as well. Has a little bit more to prove, but Gamrot has been looking very good as of recently. His only loss was that split decision loss, who we just saw once again against a very, very tough opponent in Guram Kutalazi. All right, so since then, Gamrot stringing off victories over Scott Holtzman, finishing him, finishing Jeremy Stevens with ease. It was like he was fighting his little brother, and then going out there knocking out Diego Ferreira, an underrated, proven fighter. Arman Tsarukyan going out there knocking out Joel Alvarez, who had all that hype. Knocking out Christos Giagos, my boy, taking out Matt Fravola, Davi Ramos, Olivier Aubin-Mercier, and then before that was his UFC debut against Islam Makhachev, where he gave Islam just about his most highly contested fight. Of course, Islam was knocked out, but I'm saying as an actual fight, like really going the distance and taking place, tit for tat, grappling exchange for grappling exchange. Arman was right there with him, and he was so young at the time. I think he was 22 years old. So Arman's been really, really high on my radar since that fight for a long time, and showing different elements of his game too, with the striking, working over at Tiger Muay Thai. He's such a well-rounded fighter. He's a similar type fighter to an extent of an Umar Nurmagomedov, a guy that's just so well-rounded and so complete, so dangerous. You see it with these guys. Damir Hasnovic, a lot of these guys, man, are just awesome to watch. I'm really, really excited to watch these fighters continue to throw down and to see a lot of these guys meet in some of their respected divisions. Arman Tsarukyan, I believe he was supposed to fight. Let me pull it up real quick, because he had a big time fight that was supposed to happen that did fall through. Speaking of high level fighters, so excuse me there, I'm thinking of somebody else, but he did have a fight fall through with Davi Ramos and Nasrat a while ago. Excuse me, I was thinking about something else real quick, but Arman's just been looking so explosive on the feet here. Mateusz Gamrot, more of a grappling-based fighter. I know he's working on his striking as well. I still do believe that the strength of Gamrot is his grappling. He's a well-rounded fighter, though, too, but he more impresses me there. I think there's a more realistic avenue for him to win this fight by snatching up some type of submission while they're in battle. I think that overall, if he doesn't, or he's going to have a tough time. I think Arman's going to hit a groove and get the better of the striking exchanges, be a little bit of a step above when they're wrestling and whatnot. I think Arman might take his back, hold him against the cage, throw some knees to the thigh, and really just outstrike Gamrot. But I do expect Mateusz Gamrot to be game here. He's live for some type of wild finish. If this fight ends up being just a crazy fight where they both go at it, Gamrot can snatch a leg. We've seen him pull off leg locks. The former KSW champ over in Poland, one of the top Polish fighters on planet Earth, period, obviously, right there with Jan Blachowicz. Gamrot's going to have a 3-inch height advantage, but still have a 2-inch reach disadvantage. It's interesting there. Arman Tsarukyan has a great frame with those long arms. Now, we talked about Arman Tsarukyan only being 22 years old when he took that fight. He's still only 25 years old, 25 and a half. There's so much potential for this kid. It's crazy. I'm picking Arman Tsarukyan to win this fight. His only 2 losses, the very close Islam fight and then very early in his career, and he's so young. There's future champion written all over Arman Tsarukyan's name. Arman Tsarukyan's a minus up 260 up to the minus 275 range on BetMGM, and that's against a fighter in Mateusz Gamrot, who is just extremely legit. You don't see those types of lines against a guy like Mateusz Gamrot. So I am going to pick Arman Tsarukyan. I think there's potential for Arman to get a knockout on the feet. I think there's slight potential for Gamrot to pull off some wild type of sub if they really go to war. If it's a boring fight where they're very cautious and they're kind of gauging each other for a long time, I see Arman Tsarukyan pointing from the outside, winning a decision there, getting a couple takedowns, holding him against the cage. I got Arman Tsarukyan to win the fight. The line's a little high, but when you got a guy like Arman Tsarukyan, when you're betting on a guy like that who just continuously comes through, it's kind of hard for me to tell you to stay away from it if you're going to parlay it. But just understand that Gamrot is for real, and you never know what's going to happen in there. But Arman Tsarukyan is my pick. All right, guys, that's going to wrap up UFC Tsarukyan versus Gamrot. I'm very excited for this card. The UFC just continues to deliver. For some parting words, I got some good ones for you guys. For those of you guys that stuck around this long, I'm sure you don't mind listening to it anyway. I didn't want to go on too much about it early for people that are just strictly here for business. But this whole thing with Kevin Holland, I've been having a great time with it, but I saw it really ruffled a lot of your guys' feathers. I saw some of people that tried to act cool with me back in the day, hitting me up in my DMs and whatnot, always asking me for questions, me being respectful, answering and whatnot. I saw some of you guys coming at me, siding with Holland, not really understanding that I'm really just trying to have fun with this whole thing, trying to make everything over here exciting and interesting. And, again, you would think Holland is a guy that would be the guy that would do that, and he's getting all butt hurt. But, some of you guys came at me like that. And for those of you guys that are haters that like to tune in, I seen a lot of you guys. I had to block a few of you guys on Instagram because you were just vulgar in the comment section, just going after me. It's one thing if you want to just joke around, banter back and forth, but dirty. Some of you guys are grimy, and that's all fun too. But I don't need my messages flooded with that type of stuff. Obviously, some of you guys have some serious hatred in your heart, and you guys don't see that we're just having a good time with this whole thing. And for you weirdos that watch my videos that hate me and follow me on Instagram but hate me, I'll give you this respectful advice, not because I really care, but just for the sake of it, man. You shouldn't have so much hatred in your heart. You're drinking on all that haterade, and you could be using all that energy to benefit yourself and benefit whatever you have going on in your life, because I'm sure you guys have projects, work, and different things you guys are trying to get together with your life. Focus that energy on yourself. If you don't like what I got going on over here, of course you don't have to tune in. For all you guys that tune in and are having fun with me on this journey, on this ride, as big things are going to be coming, I love you guys. I love all you guys that have been riding with me. I think it's been fun. Again, expect big things. I know you guys have been seeing a little bit of a different setup behind me. This isn't nothing. This is nothing at all. This isn't anything. Can't hit you guys with a double negative there. this isn't anything, big things coming up. I'm just setting things up here blindly. In the meantime, I got so many things going on. You're going to really see the studio come together. New audio, new visuals, everything. New setup of my videos. Green screen coming soon. Wait till you guys see what I have coming at you guys. So for all you guys that are on the ride with me, I love you guys. You guys are my soldiers out there. We're all working together here. No one's above anybody. I'm not above you guys. We're all... we're teaming up over here. We're cashing money on these bets. We're enjoying watching these fights. And shout out to you guys out there, man, that have my back. I appreciate you guys, all right? So on that note, let's hit some bets this upcoming weekend. Let's make it another profitable event, which will be 5 events in a row. I'm 9 out of 10 on my last official plays. We're extremely hot. Let's keep that momentum going. Signing out. Teller.
Welcome to the show. This is the MMA fortune teller. Yeah.
The MMA fortune teller.
The teller. The teller. The teller. The teller.